Alrighty, folks. UFC 248 just concluded. These are my scattered thoughts. Where do we start? Let's start things off with the co-main event. Joanna Jędrzejczyk versus Weili Zhang. I apologize if I just butchered this fighter's last name. But before this fight started, just looking at the fight as a whole, it looked very, very similar to Joanna Jędrzejczyk versus Jessica Andrade. It was a very similar style of opponent, an opponent who's super aggressive, an opponent who is very powerful in Weili, an opponent who's a little bit shorter than Joanna Jędrzejczyk, an opponent that throws a lot of loop-in shots. That's kind of what it looked like. The only big differences was Weili kicks a lot more than Jessica Andrade, and Weili also grapples a lot better than Jessica Andrade. So going into the fight, my thoughts was we've kind of seen this fight before. We've seen Joanna Jędrzejczyk go out there and use her movement, her footwork, clean kickboxing to outclass Jessica, and that's exactly what I thought was going to happen with this fight, which is why for the very first time in my life I gambled. I actually bet it for a fight. I bet on Joanna Jędrzejczyk, and I was really not super confident that she was going to win the fight, but I felt like the matchup was very good for her. So fight starts off, and things are looking really, really good for Joanna. It's looking very similar again to that Jessica Andrade fight. She's moving really well. Her strikes are very long. She's able to throw really fast and crisp combinations. She's able to slip out of range of the leg kicks coming at her and counter with her own leg kicks. And she was doing a really good job of ending every single combination with a leg kick. And she was doing really, really well. But then as the fight progressed, it kind of became clear that as similar as Weili is to Jessica, there are also massive, massive differences in the sense that Weili also has a lot of patience. And she also brings Muay Thai to the table. It's not just swinging wild hooks over and over again and getting countered. She brings some serious Muay Thai to the table. She was throwing very good leg kicks. She has a really nasty lead leg kick. She was using that leg kick very well against Joanna. She was also throwing really good rear leg kicks. She was throwing a really nice left hook every time Joanna would come in. I believe she would come in with a straight. Weili would dip to the left, follow up with a left hand, and it was landing quite consistently. And man, this was one of those fights that as it was going on, like I genuinely had to turn off commentary because Joe Rogan does this thing where, every little exchange, he blows it out of proportion. So I actually had to turn off commentary so that I can focus on the fight and see if maybe I can judge this thing live. And I might need to rewatch it, but at this point, it's one of those fights that it could have gone either way. Like you genuinely cannot say that either fighter was robbed. Like if Joanna would have won that fight, you can't say Weili was robbed. And seeing as Weili won the fight, I can't sit here and tell you that Joanna was robbed. It was a very, very close fight. They were going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And these women threw, I wonder if they broke a record. I wonder if they broke a record in that weight class. I believe they threw upwards of 600 strikes in a 5-round fight. And that is insane. That's some EA Sports UFC 3 numbers we're seeing right there. Of course, the biggest story of the fight is Joanna Jędrzejczyk and her head. Her head was just huge, massive hematoma. I forget what strike led to that, but you could really tell, especially going into the 4th and the 5th rounds, that it was really bothering Joanna. Every time she would get hit on that forehead, you can just tell that it was messing with her balance. She wasn't really able to push as hard as she normally is able to push in the 5th round. And Weili found a way to steal the fight. Was it disappointing? It really was. It was really disappointing. I personally don't like the hate that she was getting before the fight. I understand that she's a little bit arrogant and she comes off like a bully, but all of that stuff personally just does not bother me. I'm a big fan of her fighting style, and I just felt like the hate that she was getting before this fight was a little bit overblown, and I was really rooting for her to win. But even though she lost the fight, definitely proud of that fight. As a fight fan, it was a great fight. A lot of people, including myself, believe that that is the best women's MMA fight ever. Quite possibly up there with one of the absolute best mixed martial arts fights we've ever seen. They were throwing strikes non-stop. And I gotta say, man, I am super impressed with Wei Li's condition. And I believe this was the very first time that she actually went 5 rounds in a mixed martial arts contest. And she did not slow down like I thought she would. I thought that by round number 4, round number 5, that she would be so gassed out that Joanna would be able to just pick her apart and maybe even stop her. But she, even though she slowed down, it was never anything super significant. She still had enough pop in her shots to do damage, you could tell. So major props to her. She's definitely a champion, and it's very good that the UFC still has a champion from China. It's a very good thing. Now, let's move on to the main event, which is like, I don't even know how you would describe that main event except saying that was the Yoel Romero experience. It was the Yoel Romero experience without Yoel Romero winning the fight. You know, when I made that video, The Soldier of God, the fighter showcase that I made in preparation for UFC 248, a lot of comments in that video, a lot of you were telling me Yoel does not stand completely still in his fights. Yoel doesn't do that. You don't know what you're talking about. Oh my God, this dude's out of his mind. But you guys saw it again. Round number 1, Yoel came out completely flat-footed, completely stationary, completely still. And you could tell just looking at Izzy, watching this man just standing there with his guard up, everything super tight, looking like a statue, that it threw him off his game completely. Izzy then resorted to a lot of feints. I mean, you can't just go at that man standing still right there, because when a fighter is standing completely still right there with no footwork whatsoever, no movement, they are seeing everything. There is no confusion. If you come at them with a shot, they're able to counter you so easily, and we saw that in round number 1 when Yoel was able to counter Israel's jab with a beautiful overhand left that like really caught Izzy. I don't think he was necessarily rocked. I think he was a little bit stunned, and you could see him blinking his left eye over and over and over again. You could tell that shot really affected him, but he demonstrated his really good chin because he didn't go down on that shot. And you could just tell as the fight progressed that, like, Israel just didn't have a dance partner. Israel didn't have a dance partner, and Yoel, on the other hand, did not also have the type of dance partner that Yoel needs for Yoel to come out of his little cocoon. Like, if you guys watch the way Paulo Costa fought Yoel, like, Paulo was going at that man over and over and over again, and that forced Yoel to get out of that completely flat-footed style. Yoel had to fight back. If you look at the way someone like Robert Whittaker fought Yoel. Yoel was doing that same thing, standing completely still, but Robert was able to pull him out. He was able to force that man to dig deep. But Izzy has a completely different style. He's a tactical, technical kickboxer who is not going to go out there and risk getting KO just to entertain the fans. Of course, he's a mixed martial artist, and he would really love to go out there and do something super spectacular. But I feel like the one thing that he's going to realize, Israel, he's going to realize this as he starts fighting more and more and the level of competition starts to increase, is that some fights are just going to be this way. Not every single fight you're in is going to be super spectacular. Sometimes you're going to have bad nights. Sometimes you're going to have bad nights that will leave a bad taste in people's mouths. I mean, his last fight against Robert Whittaker was super spectacular, stopped him with a left hook. But Robert was also lunging in. He was giving Israel every single thing he needed to create a spectacular performance. But Yoel did not give Izzy anything. He didn't give him anything at all that would have allowed him to create magic in that octagon. And to create magic, man, you need 2 people willing to create magic. You need 2 people. You need 2 to tango. It takes 2 to tango in there. And I feel like the style clash again with Yoel. The frustration with Yoel for me is I don't understand why this man does not grapple. Even in round number 5, it felt like in round number 5, Yoel had enough gas tank to truly grapple, but he refuses to. Which is why it was kind of funny You know, when people were describing this as a grappler versus striker matchup, it was never a grappler versus striker matchup. It was Yoel Romero versus a kickboxer. Yoel Romero, with his Olympic level experience in wrestling, he just never uses it. The one time he did shoot in the fight, he was able to get Israel down, but very briefly. Israel was able to get right back up to his feet. He was very nimble. He was like a mouse just sneaking out of the back door every single time. He's so slippery. But I feel like Yoel should have definitely grappled a lot more, as opposed to swinging at Izzy's head over and over again. I mean, Israel has demonstrated time and time and time again, if your plan is to come into the octagon and swing on his head, he's going to make you miss all day long. Yoel barely worked the legs. Yoel barely worked the body. Yoel did not grapple. He just stood there. And then afterwards, you know, while the crowd was booing Israel for some reason, you know, Yoel makes this whole entire speech that this is not the champion that you need. Is this your definition of a champion? A champion that runs. I mean, he's calling Israel a runner. It's like, what do you expect, bro? Like, truly, you want Israel to stand in the middle of the octagon and trade blow for blow with you? Like, that's completely unreasonable. You can't expect Izzy to fight you like that, especially considering the fact that you didn't even go forward for the whole 25 minutes. It's not like you were, you know, like you were pursuing the fight and Izzy was just running the whole entire time. I feel like Israel was way more active. He was way more accurate. I feel like Israel was actually pursuing the fight a lot more than Yoel. Israel was trying to fight. He was trying to throw strikes in there. So that whole speech that Yoel did at the end right there, I felt like it was completely uncalled for. But, you know, it is what it is. Weird main event. I'm pretty sure Israel is going to go home, look back on that, and he's not going to like that performance. He really won't. But he just needs to remember, man, you are fighting at the highest levels at this time. Not every single fight is going to be spectacular. It's the same thing with John Jones. Not every single fight is going to be great. No matter how good you are, you're going to have nights. The same thing with GSP, Mighty Mouse, Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva had horrible fights. You know, George St. Pierre had lackluster performances as well. It does not matter how great you are in there. Not every single fight is going to be magic. And the reason for that, again, is because you need two fighters willing to create magic in there. And this fight, as technical and as mentally draining as it definitely was not one of Israel's best. It was not one of Yoel's best, but it was more classic Yoel Romero. Like I said, it was the soldier of God experience in there. Crazy night, man. I feel like it was a really good card. Main event disappointed a little bit, but the co-main event definitely made up for it. Overall, really solid card. Definitely enjoyed it. I was also a fan of Neil Magny's performance. He came back, performed really well. What is the other fighter? I'm drawing a blank on this man's name. Sugar Sean O'Malley. Sugar Sean O'Malley also came back after 2 years off dealing with USADA and tainted supplements, and he also put on an incredible performance, stopped the man in the first round, just blew him out the water like he never left. Just overall, really good card. Definitely enjoyed it. And I think that's where I'm going to leave it. If you guys enjoyed this video with my scattered thoughts, let me know in the comment section. Also, give me your thoughts on the fight card. What did you think about the co-main event? What did you think about the main event? Let's discuss that in the comment section below. And I will see you guys tomorrow with a brand new video. In the meantime, follow me on Twitter at Marshall Mind, and on Instagram it is at Marshall Mind. Or specifically follow me on Twitter because I usually discuss fight related subjects a lot more on my Twitter. So Twitter, it's at Marshall Mind, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. In the meantime, stay safe. Have a good night, folks.